here's your host, Alex Garrett.
Well, Lou Terminello, you're back for Terminello's Take. But before that, if you were listening to a website called Podcast Tonight, this is what you heard earlier this week.
Thank you for this opportunity for Alex and I to speak with you. You're an NBA legend, a Hall of Famer, brilliant broadcaster. You are the Los Angeles Clippers, and I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Well, Alex and Lou, it's been my pleasure. It's been a fun conversation. I really appreciate you reaching out to us.
And as a youngster in this whole thing, I'm just glad to listen to two minds of basketball going at it today. This was exciting, and thanks for both of you for joining my podcast, and Ralph for joining Terminello's Take. That was Ralph Lawler, Clippers legendary broadcaster. Thanks so much for joining us, and bingo, 40 years of the NBA is the title of the book. Thank you so much.
Not heard your favorite podcast in the top 20? Tag your favorite podcast below to give them a shout out.
That was a podcast top 20 right there, that whole interview. What do you think?
Hey, that sounds great. I'm glad we made it. That's fantastic.
With that little bit, let's get to the real news of the day, because obviously, I'm having to flip a coin here. I have jerseys of so many of these teams this weekend, but where do we start? Do we start about the Eagles' meltdown being complete? I think we should start there.
We can start there. There was two big meltdowns this week. Obviously, we saw one coming for the last 5 or 6 weeks, but I didn't think it was going to happen. I didn't think that the Eagles would play so poorly like they did on Monday night. The other one we'll talk about in a couple of minutes, the team that had the most pressure going into the playoffs, the Dallas Cowboys, totally came a cropper and just fell apart. But we'll talk about the Eagles first. Obviously, the Eagles' problems go beyond what's on the roster and on the playing field. It's an embarrassing collapse. There's no other way to say it. They were totally unprepared to play a playoff game against a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that was 9-8 in a terrible NFC South. The Eagles, even though they were on the road, no excuses. They should have been able to at least survive this week. But there was no Eagle adjustment to the Todd Bowles blitzes. The secondary was totally unprofessional, Alex. I mean, there were guys so wide open. Me and you might have been able to catch a touchdown pass. And that's saying a lot.
Lack of tackling. I mean, that's not against Sirianni in the sense of they're not going against him here, are they?
No, I mean, like I say, everybody plays to win, but they looked disinterested. And you got to remember, 12 months ago, Sirianni came within a couple of minutes and one or two calls of winning the Super Bowl in a game where really I think the Eagles outplayed the Chiefs, and we talked about that. But they were not ready to play on Monday night. James Bradbury, you talk about lack of tackling. It was an amateurish performance by James Bradbury, and I would be surprised if he's on the Eagles roster next year. He couldn't tackle a stationary tackling dummy. He looks like he's finished. There's probably a locker room issue that we don't know about that might come out later on. Even when the Eagles were 10-1, they had won some games against New England, against Buffalo, that they probably should have lost, but they were able to get away with it. Is Sirianni's job in jeopardy? I would say, yeah, I would say for sure. Now, he lost his two coordinators, the OC and the DC. Those are two key guys who became head coaches in the league. But even Jalen Hurts wasn't as good as he was last year. And he didn't lift the Eagles emotionally like, say, Josh Allen does. Josh Allen, besides his great talent, lifts his team up emotionally. And, we've seen that a lot. But going back to Monday night, Alex, on first down, the Buccaneers averaged 9.5 yards a play. That's unheard of. 9 yards a play on first down. That makes second and short, third and short they could do manageable and so easy as far as going into their bag of tricks.
Let me ask you about this, because no one's really been talking about the resurgence of Baker Mayfield, and that's been a storyline for Tampa, though maybe we didn't know about that storyline until Monday night.
Well, the kid's had a good year, and the kid had played hurt. He had bum shoulder. He had very bruised ribs, and he's a tough guy. He's always been a tough guy. So, kudos to him. Kudos to Todd Bowles. They won the game that they had in front of them, and they'll be playing in Detroit this week, and all the credit in the world. They were prepared. The Eagles were not. Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, he's going to have to fire the coach. Maybe. I don't know if he is. I don't know if they're going to just say, hey, Sirianni, we're going to keep the coach, and we're going to be firing coordinators. Sometimes they do that. Assistant coaches. We'll see. I think these moves will happen soon. And we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon, early Wednesday afternoon. So who knows? Stuff might be happening by the end of the day. The thing is,
got to ask you this, because I believe firmly that the cities of Dallas, Arlington, and Philly are going to have a say in this, in whether they get fired or not. Meaning the newspapers, the fans. Do you think that's going to factor in it at all? I think they will.
Alex, no doubt about it. I mean, if you listen to Philadelphia sports radio, and I live halfway between Philadelphia and New York now, so you get a lot of the Philadelphia radio stations. They're brutal. They hold nothing back, whether it's a former Eagle player who has access to the airwaves, a journalist, a talk show host, and I think owners do listen. And the old saying is, you listen to the fans, you become a fan. Well, you want, instead of being the administrator that you should be. But I think in this case, the fans do lend credence to the decision making, more so in Philly than Dallas. But in Dallas' situation, if you want to jump to the Dallas situation, they were heavy favorites. They had won 16 games in a row at home, and they were totally outcoached, out-schemed, outplayed by the Packers. It was shocking to me how poorly Dallas played. And, it's easy, Alex, low-hanging fruit, when you want to go criticize a team that loses. Criticize the head coach and the quarterback. Well, I can tell you one thing. Even though Dak did not have a good game on Sunday, it wasn't Dak who put the Cowboys in the hole. It was their defense. Micah Parsons, basically a no-show. Yes, I know the Packers game plan to make sure he was neutralized, but he was nowhere for a guy who likes to talk about how great he is, and he is great. But he certainly wasn't great on Sunday, as the whole Dallas defense was just abysmal. And Coach LaFleur did something that I don't know why all these teams that win the coin toss defer. I don't understand it. This is an offensive league. He won that toss. He took the ball. He shoved it down Dallas's throat. Dallas couldn't stop the run. And they got off that 7-0 lead, and it went on from there. And I don't care how many great stats Dak had. Those stats mean nothing. Those are all padded stats, playing to the score. At one point, it was 48-16.
All right, Lou, let me look forward to this weekend. And I think the biggest matchup to me is whether Josh Allen can get over the Kansas City Chiefs hump. Do you see that happening this weekend?
Well, it's the best game on the board. Obviously, it's the last game of the weekend. It's the first road game, believe it or not, that Patrick Mahomes is going to be playing in his career. This is his 16th playoff game. He's had 3 Super Bowls on neutral sites. The other 12 playoff games all have been at Arrowhead Stadium. So it's going to be very interesting. Now, you'll remember the game 2 years ago. Josh Allen played fantastic. You can say that those last 13 seconds that Sean McDermott played those last 13 seconds wrong, which allowed Kansas City to kick that field goal and then win the toss, and Josh Allen never got the ball. So I don't think Josh Allen has to really prove anything on Sunday night, but he wants to obviously advance to the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. And right now, he is playing at the superstar level that he is. Like I said, he imposes his will on his team and on the other team. But again, even the other night, fourth coldest game in NFL history, didn't bother Mahomes. Mahomes played an outstanding game, in my opinion. He played an outstanding game, whether it was 4 degrees below zero, or if he was playing indoors, or if it was 70 degrees. It's hard to go against the champion. I would say the game's a toss-up, but it's really hard to go against the champion when you have the best player in the league on your team. And I hate lists, but I mean, if you want to rank the quarterbacks, it's Mahomes, in my opinion, is obviously number one, then Burrow, then Josh Allen, then Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson this weekend, like Dallas last weekend, all the pressure on him. Lamar Jackson personally has all the pressure on him because he's 1-3 in the playoffs, and he hasn't played very well, and the Ravens have only averaged 13 points a game in those 4 games. If he comes a cropper and the Ravens become a cropper to a Houston team that has a chance, I don't think they'll win. I think the Ravens will win, but if by some chance Houston wins, it's going to be the critics are really going to be coming down not on the Ravens as a team, but Lamar Jackson specifically. So we'll see.
Who's already had a lot of drama with the Ravens, if you think about it, all of last year's offseason and whether he was going to sign back or not. It's been a whirlwind with him. Now, you mentioned the Texans, and I think C.J. Stroud had a great game, but here's another example of a warm climate team going up to a northern cold climate. Is that going to affect them almost like the Dolphins got affected clearly this weekend?
Well, okay, let's talk about the Dolphins. Yes, obviously they're a warm weather team, and they played in the 4th coldest game in NFL history. But again, even though the Chiefs play in Kansas City, they've never played in the 4th coldest game in NFL history until the other night, and they played very well. I mean, the Chiefs were better than the Dolphins. The Dolphins were banged up defensively. It was, as I said to you last week, that was a bad spot for the Dolphins. But can it affect Houston? Yes, it can. But what's going to affect Houston even more is an effective Lamar Jackson and a bullying Raven defense and running game. And again, I don't know what the weather's going to be on Saturday in Baltimore, so we'll see. I mean, the Ravens, everything's basically laid out for the Ravens. They're going to have, if they win, they have the AFC Championship game at home, whether they play a very good Kansas City team or a very good Buffalo team. It's laid out for the Ravens. I mean, you got these windows of opportunity you got to take advantage of. The Eagles have not. They're going to have to replace some guys, even though they have some great young offensive players, but they're going to have to replace veterans on their defensive side of the ball. So you have to seize that window of opportunity, and they almost did last year, and this year they just fell apart the last 6 weeks of the season, and it's a historic collapse. So the Ravens have to seize this opportunity. This is their moment.
And one last thing about Mahomes and these guys, and I've noticed this a lot more in the playoffs from both NFC and AFC, is the sidearm. I mean, these guys have sort of went to the sidearm a lot more. Are you noticing that as well?
Yes, absolutely.
And
and that's not like
now.
Even
there's so much hype about just the wild card game alone, but we're only in the divisional round. Lou, doesn't it bother you that we're only in the divisional round and so much hype? Like they should just condense this. They won't, but it's like, oh my God, we're only in the divisional round. That's how I feel about it.
Well, you make a point for sure. We saw 2 9-8 teams win. So does that put a blight on the regular season? I don't think so. I don't like the seventh team in there. There used to be 4, 3 division winners and the wild card. Then they went to 5. I would have kept it 5 or definitely not go to 7, but they did. And obviously the ratings have been fantastic as we move forward. But something about the broadcast teams too. I mean, all the production of the games are great, and really all the broadcast teams were terrific. I mean, nobody's better, in my opinion, than Joe Buck and Troy Aikman as a tandem. They are clearly the best of, in my opinion, just my opinion, of the number one crews among the NFL various networks right now.
I agree. I mean, I didn't get a chance to watch every snap, but I did watch some of it from every game. Now, I wanted to see the Lions keep going, and I felt like Stafford had a bit of a vintage game on his old turf.
You know, the guy is a tremendous player, and it was a compelling game. I mean, obviously, it was the first Lions home game, playoff game in 30 years, which is hard to believe. Stafford, he was outstanding for LA. He is one tough guy. In my opinion, he's a future Hall of Famer. Puka Nacua, that rookie, 181 yards. Kid's a star already. But the Lions stopped the Rams 3 times in the red zone, forcing them to go for field goals. And that's what won the game for the Lions. Yes, the Lions got a couple of calls that went their way on that last Ram drive. And McVay, who later said that he made a mistake, and he did, on 4th down from the Lions 44, he punted with 4:07 to go and only 1 timeout. And they never got the ball back. But it was a historic win, obviously. It's only their second win since 1957 in the playoffs. So it was a big night for them, and I think they're going to get their second win on Sunday, playing at home against Tampa.
Baker couldn't build off what he did on Sunday night at the same time, right?
Well, not only Baker, their offensive line did a great job, and they were able to get some key rushing yards, plus the fact the Eagles helped them out with, just as we talked about earlier, just putrid tackling. So we'll see. But if by some chance Green Bay upsets San Francisco, which I don't see, but they have a shot, just like if you go back to last week, Terminello's take, I said Dallas should win, but that's a tricky game. And it was more tricky than I thought. And so Green Bay has a chance. I mean, LaFleur has them going like gangbusters. He has Jordan Love playing great. He has all those young players have matured during the course of the season. I just can't see them winning in San Francisco. But if they do, and Detroit wins, Detroit plays the NFC Championship game at home. So
of course, the NFL is licking their chops at Lions, Packers. I mean, that would be thrilling, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be a very, very intriguing matchup.
Now it's interesting that it was interesting is that this is the first time the Lions have won a playoff game since the '91 season, and I'm just looking at the day I was born. They got trounced by the Niners in San Francisco, but I'm reminded that there was some football on the day I was born. In fact, the Jets won the day I was born in 1991. How about that against the Colts?
Hey, a very, very memorable birthday for Alex the Great.
It just, in my mind, I make these connections. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Last time the Lions won was in the '91 season. So there you go. And on that day, they lost the Niners to the Lions. Maybe they'll play again in the NFC Championship. We'll see.
The playoffs, obviously, the NFL's bulletproof. I don't know what the number was, but I heard that because of the rescheduled game, Pittsburgh at Buffalo, rescheduled from Sunday to Monday. They replayed before the game on the 4:30 game on Sunday. CBS played Kansas City and Cincinnati, the AFC Championship game last year, and I heard their ratings were very good for a game that was played
That's
a year
awesome.
ago.
By the way, I got confused. I remember the one year the Chiefs and Bengals played that same scenario, and if I'm not mistaken, didn't they have a fumble? I think it was the Mahomes. They fumbled a snap, and Cincinnati went on to the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago.
Yes, and Cincinnati got a field goal right at the end, unless Cincinnati was victim of a very, very shaky out-of-bounds foul on the Cincinnati linebacker. I can't remember his name, and put them in position to kick the winning field goal at the end of the game. So obviously these officials play a role in these games, but thank God for replay. It seems like those kind of errors are minimized. So hopefully there'll be no controversy this weekend and moving forward.
No, by the way, I find it better to listen to radio because you can actually hear all the players' names mentioned, unlike TV. I don't know if you noticed that, but I love listening on the radio because, oh my God, I can finally get who's on the field at what point in the game.
Well, you make a good point because play-by-play announcers on radio have to paint a word picture, and there's a lot of very good radio play-by-play announcers for sure.
It does paint a broader, better picture for us. And, of course, the Westwood Walkthrough, always a home run each and every playoffs. Working on Kevin Harlan, by the way. We'll see when he can join us, if he can join us sooner than later.
That would be great. I would love to talk to him.
One last thing to put a button up on this week's Terminello's Take. We got to talk about the big guy in Ann Arbor. I mean, he lifted the trophy. He celebrated with Michigan, but it looks like his sights are set on the pro teams. What are you hearing about Jim Harbaugh and his search?
I think this is the time he's going to go. I really do. I know he's been interviewed by two teams, the Los Angeles Chargers and the Atlanta Falcons. I still think the Chargers are better for him. They have the quarterback in play. I know Arthur Blank with the Falcons. I mean, obviously he's in his 80s. He wants to win now. I don't blame him. We all do. But I think if Harbaugh has his pick of the litter and the dollars and the responsibilities are similar and need his approval, to me the Los Angeles Chargers just make the most sense because they have Justin Herbert. I don't know if he's
agree
going
with
to
you
be
there. I mean, I think he wants, and so does Belichick. They want projects to work on. It sounds like, right? You're hearing that too.
Well, but again, Belichick. We don't live forever. We know that we all live forever. But he's 72 years old, and maybe Belichick in Atlanta might be the way to go. Something tells me, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a right fit. Belichick with Dallas seems more like a right fit, more of an intriguing fit, more of a sexy fit, and.
We know Jerry Jones loves Jerry's World to be a circus, so that would add to it.
It will, but Belichick will put a damper on it being a circus. He will. He's not going to.
Everybody was Jimmy Johnson in that halftime rant. I felt like everybody was sort of empathizing with him, and also it looked like he wanted to be back on that sideline for the Cowboys.
Well, two things that changed Dallas. I mean, they won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, and they lost. The 1 year they didn't win, they lost the NFC Championship game to a great San Francisco team right at the end, or they probably won 4 Super Bowls in a row. Then the NFL introduced free agency, which hurt the Cowboys. And then they lost Jimmy Johnson, which hurt the Cowboys. If there was no free agency, and they kept Jimmy Johnson, I don't know how many Super Bowls they would have won. They might have won. They might have pushed the Patriots.
All right, one last thing, because we're talking about legacy teams. I mean, is this the year that the Packers are sort of surprising everybody? And is this a prove it kind of year without Rodgers the first time? I mean, look, it's a legendary franchise, but they were kind of shaky on Jordan Love in the beginning, and here they are.
Well, the media was more shaky on Jordan Love than the Packers were. And Jordan Love will be the first one to tell you that sitting for 3 years helped him out tremendously. And, the first half of this year, he wasn't very good. But, man, the last 7 or 8 weeks, I think he's something like 29 touchdown passes and 1 or 2 interceptions. I'm very impressed with the young man at QB for the Packers. But again, the Packers were 9-8, so it's not that they took the league by storm. I think they'll get better, and they have a nice young coach who knows what he's doing. And like I said, I liked what he did the other day. I know he won the toss, he took the ball. And this is an offensive league, and all these coaches automatically defer, thinking they may not even get that extra possession to start the second half. I would start off with the ball unless the weather conditions play a factor.
Well, folks, to be quite honest, we weren't really done the conversation with Lou Terminello because after we did our first session, I saw that Muhammad Ali's birthday was this week. In fact, it was Wednesday. Lou Terminello, I know fans want to know your thoughts on Ali. Any memories that you have?
I was young. I was my teenage years when he was the most polarizing and most charismatic figure in the world, really. Everybody had an opinion on Muhammad Ali. He transcended really any demographic. He transcended any nationality. He was the number one most recognizable figure worldwide. That's for sure. Obviously, he was a great athlete. He was an activist, and he'll never be forgotten. I think he's the greatest boxer of all time. You could say arguably. He was robbed of the best 3.5 years of his prime as a boxer, but he still came back to win the championship of the heavyweight division at a time when there was a lot of outstanding boxers. But he was a personality like none other. He was, you either loved him or you hated him, very much like Howard Cosell, who he was very friendly with, and Howard, obviously, one of the most influential broadcasters of all time, hitched himself to Ali, and Ali hitched himself to Cosell, and they formed a great media athletic pair. The thing that I remember, obviously, when Ali was banned from boxing for 3 years, obviously, I remember him coming up. I was young when he won the gold medal in Rome. He was still called by Cassius Clay at that time. It was Cassius Clay Jr., and his father, Cassius Clay Sr. And ironically, he changed his name because he didn't want to, it was a slave name, quote unquote slave name. But Cassius Clay was actually an abolitionist in Kentucky who hated slavery. And that's what his father's name was, Cassius Clay Sr., after the Kentucky abolitionist. But Ali changed his name, changed his religion. He entered the Nation of Islam, and they used him. Hermit Muhammad was his manager, and a lot of people around him. They took advantage of Ali, and it is really well talked about in Bill O'Reilly's book, Killing the Legends, when he talks about not only how Muhammad Ali was manipulated by his managers, but also John Lennon and Elvis Presley. It's a great read for anybody who wants to see the inside goings-on of how these legends, as great as they are in their various skills, can be manipulated. But as far as a boxer, Ali's mobility, speed were like none other. He said, "The sting like a butterfly, dance like a butterfly, sting like a bee" was true. He he was basically probably one of the best defensive boxers of all time. And obviously his 3 fights with Joe Frazier, probably the second best fighter that I saw. He wasn't technical like Ali. He was a bruiser, but they both were in the same era. And obviously they had 3 of the most amazing sporting events of all time, starting on March 8th, 1971, which I believe was Ali's second fight after, I think it was just his second fight after he was allowed back into the boxing arena. It was a great fight. But going back, obviously, as you want, before we talk about the March 8th, 1971 fight, and Alex, yeah, I know you've been around and you've seen a lot of great sporting events. I know you're still young, but this sporting event, the lead up to this sporting event was like none other. But we'll get to that in a second. But, Ali obviously had some controversy that he may not have been involved in. The fight in Lewiston, Maine, the second Sonny Liston fight with Muhammad Ali. And I remember that night very well. It wasn't on television. It was on radio. And they actually cut into the Mets game. The Mets were only in their 4th year, and they were a true expansion team. And the Mets being broadcast on WHN, and WHN cut into the middle of the Met game to broadcast the Ali Liston 2 fight in Lewiston, Maine. I think there's only about 2,500 people in the building. It was a postponed fight. It was supposed to be in Boston earlier. And Ali had to cancel because of some type of injury. It could have been hernia, but I'm not sure. He might have needed a hernia surgery. But anyway, so the fight lasted less than 2 minutes. And everybody thinks that the fight was rigged, that Liston took a dive. They could have said that Liston took a dive, and Ali's camp had no idea what was going to happen, that he took a dive. All kinds of rumors that Liston was in debt, that the Nation of Islam told Liston he better take a dive so Muhammad Ali could win. That, I don't know if it's true or false, but seems to have some legs. But that really got Ali going, and till he was banned for 4 years before he took it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court overruled that ban. And then even though he lost 3.5 years of his prime, he fought those 3 fights against Frazier, March of 71. Then they fought again in 74 and January of 74. And then they fought probably the greatest boxing match of all time, the Thriller in Manila, on October 1st, 1975. Now, in between there, Frazier was a champion, and Frazier was a champion till 1973, when he was a heavy favorite against Olympic champion George Foreman. And George Foreman, in the famous down goes Frazier, Howard Cosell was calling the blow-by-blow of that night's event. And Frazier lost the heavyweight title, never to regain it. Then the next year, there was the Rumble in the Jungle in Zaire, which is now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, called Zaire at that time. It was at 3 o'clock in the morning local time, so it can be televised on the American East Coast at 10 o'clock. It was closed circuit, and Ali fought a defensive fight. It's the famed rope-a-dope, where he wore Foreman out defensively, and he won the championship. And leading up to that fight in 1974, earlier that year, Ali and Frazier fought in a non-title fight, which was almost unheard of for 2 great fighters in a non-title fight, a 12-rounder at the Garden. And the winner of that was going to get a chance to fight Foreman. And Ali won a controversial 12-round decision. Many people thought, including all-time boxing writers and boxing observers, thought that Ali lost the fight, that Frazier won the fight. But Ali won the fight by the judges unanimously, which gave him the opportunity to the famous rope-a-dope Rumble in the Jungle fight, which led to October 1st, 1975 in Manila, the most, what should I say, two guys looking to kill each other. And they almost did. Both guys, after the fight, took a long time to recover. They both were in a hospital. Frazier was really banged up. They both were. Ali almost quit in the 10th round of the Thriller in Manila. At the end of 14 rounds, Frazier couldn't see, and Eddie Futch, his manager, threw in the towel, much to Frazier's chagrin. He wanted to continue, but Ali was urinating blood. He couldn't see, or the bright lights bothered him. They took a beating. That fight took so much out of both those guys. They were never the same. I think Frazier fought 2 more times and then retired. Obviously, Ali kept fighting. He lost to Leon Spinks when Leon Spinks was 20 years old in a huge upset, and then he came back and he beat Leon Spinks to regain the title for a 3rd time. I believe he's still the only heavyweight to do that 3 times. Boxing's not like it was. I have to admit, I don't follow boxing anymore. I couldn't tell you the champions of the various divisions like it was. But there is no, I just don't think there's no more charismatic, we use that term, but there's no more alluring figure, whether you're a sports fan or you weren't a sports fan, than Muhammad Ali. He was the greatest, as he dubbed himself, but he truly was.
Lou, real fast, the relationship between Cosell and Ali, tell me about it.
Well, obviously, I think Cosell's meteoric rise went hand in hand with the popularity of Ali. They both were, you either loved him or you hate him. I mean, you remember when Cosell became the part of the Monday Night Football crew back in 1970, and he was there through 1983. People either loved him or hated him. I mean, sports bars actually had contests throwing beer bottles at the TV whenever he appeared. So he had that kind of appeal or lack of appeal to certain people. But he was influential. He broke the mold. He wasn't afraid to tell it like he would say, tell it like it is. And him and Ali became a very, very big-time partnership. I mean, before your time, there was a show that was called Wide World of Sports. It was on ABC, 3 o'clock every Saturday. And Cosell sometimes was the host when there was boxing involved. Wide World of Sports basically showed the non-traditional sports, the demolition derby, things like that. They weren't showing the 7th game of the World Series, but they used Wide World of Sports many times as leading up to fights that ABC had the rights to. And there was one time before one of the fights, and I don't know if it was, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't remember if it was Ali Frazier, 1, 2, or 3, and Ali trash talked. He was a fantastic trash talker. And Ali did go over the line in trash talking, making fun of his opponent's physical condition as far as their looks. He went over the line in trash talking, and Frazier hated Ali. And they tried to have a détente later in life, but really, I don't think Frazier ever forgave Ali's taunts, calling him I'll punish them, and I will punish the gorilla in Manila. I don't think Frazier ever got over that. And one day they were on Wide World of Sports, leading up to one of these 3 fights. Again, I don't remember which one. Cosell was in the middle, and then Ali started in trash talking Frazier. Frazier got up, and they were actually fighting on set. You can YouTube it. That's how much the rivalry between those two boxers were, and it made for obviously must see TV, even though a lot of those fights weren't on TV. I remember the March 8th, 1971 fight, the first fight, the so-called fight of the century. I guess it was Ali's second fight after he came out of after he was able to come back and box thanks to the Supreme Court decision. We got our updates on WINS every 15 minutes. It wasn't on radio, it wasn't on over-the-air television, it was on closed circuit. You had to go to the movie theaters to watch it. I did not go because the movie theaters were all sold out. But I went 2 days later with my brother and my friends, and we saw it at the Stanley Theater in Jersey City, New Jersey. So it was a different time. The same thing with Ali Frazier too, the non-title fight, which led to the winner of that fight was going to fight Foreman. But Ali Frazier 3 again, a closed circuit fight, which broke all records at that time. And I think Ali got, and I could be wrong, I think Ali got the equivalent of that fight of what would be equal to like $45 or $47 million today in gross revenue. That fight was also closed circuit. I didn't see that fight until the next night when HBO showed a replay of the fight. Now I saw it 24 hours later. They were killing each other. It probably is the closest that two guys of that caliber came close to dying in the ring. It was truly like watching two gladiators fight to the death 2,000 years ago in the Roman Colosseum. But those are fights that you'll never forget. Unfortunately, even though doctors say it didn't lead to Muhammad Ali's Parkinson's, because Parkinson's is a neurological disease, all those blows to the head and the body could certainly not have helped his physical condition. I think in the Thriller in Manila, Ali took something like 440 to 450 blows by Frazier. And Frazier said he hit him so hard, it would have brought down the wall of a city. But you were talking about not only two great boxers, and Frazier had that tremendous left hook. You're talking about two of the greatest competitors ever. I mean, in any sport. I mean, you talk about top 10 events. We could talk about a great Super Bowl, a great seventh game of the World Series, a great World Series, a great NBA seventh game. This is right up there. This boxing match is right up there with the greatest of the all-time sporting events. It's memorable. And it's different. It wasn't team, but it was two individuals showing their incredible guts and ability to try to win the heavyweight championship. It was there was nobody like Muhammad Ali, that's for sure.
Well, Lou, let me tell you, this was great. I didn't want to let Terminello's take for this week go by without your thoughts on Muhammad Ali and his birthday. Would have been, again, January 17th. So thanks for coming back on and weighing in with me on this, pun intended.
It is my pleasure. He was enjoyable to watch. Boxing at that time was enjoyable to watch. There were so many terrific heavyweights in that era. You had Foreman, of course. You had Floyd Patterson, who was the youngest heavyweight to win the championship at age 21. Then Ali was one of the youngest, and then Mike Tyson was the youngest at 20 when he won it. But that era is over. You know, you were able to watch boxing on TV. There was Friday night fights. It's all different now. It's just not the same. But Ali will never be forgotten. That's for sure.